Do you wish to change it? The future. Do you wish to change it? Do you wish to change it? Do you wish to...
"12 years ago, Xenoblade Chronicles, developed by Monolith Soft, landed on the Wii in Japan and took the world by storm. After initially being unplanned for a Western release, fan-led Operation Rainfall convinced Nintendo to localize the game, along with some other sought-after JRPGs. The game was well received here in the West, and immediately became a cult classic with a devout fanbase. Now Xenoblade is thriving as one of Nintendo's most well-loved franchises, and this summer we finally got the fourth game in the series, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Xenoblade X on the Wii U, the second Xenoblade game, doesn't factor into the numbered naming scheme of the rest of the games, and is seemingly unconnected to the timeline, at least for now, which is why this one is 3. With that out of the way, Xenoblade 3 takes place on Ionios, a gorgeous but war-ridden land created by a mysterious collision of the worlds of the original Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, both of which are playable on Switch. With the entire trilogy being available on the Switch, newcomers to the franchise might be wondering where to start. Is it okay to start with 3, or should you go back to the beginning? Each of the games are self-contained stories with new cast of characters that can absolutely be enjoyed on their own, but as with any story, you'll get more out of it if you've played the previous ones. That said, potential newcomers should not be scared off from giving this one a try. It's still a fantastic entry point. Existing fans of the previous entries are likely wondering how this one compares, but if you're already a series fan, I'd wager you've probably already bought the game and are just curious what other people are thinking. And just so you know, I'm keeping this review absolutely spoiler free, but I hope to do a spoiler discussion with a friend soon. Without further ado, here are my thoughts on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Right off the bat, I'm confident in saying this is the best playing Xenoblade game. Exploration is fun and rewarding, and combat finds the perfect balance between being super complex but also fairly approachable and understandable. What you're looking at right now probably looks insane to the uninitiated, but I promise it's easier to pick up than it looks. At first, combat is pretty simple. You have 3 combat arts to choose from, and then your talent art. Your character auto-attacks when in range and standing still, and it's up to you to time your arts and position yourself to trigger art's secondary effect. Combat quickly speeds up though, as you unlock more arts, the ability to swap between any of the 6 party members on the fly, fusion arts, different classes, accessories, skills, interlinking burst and smash combos, and more that I'm probably forgetting. It can be daunting at first, but I think the game eases you into it far better than any of the previous Xenoblade games. One major addition to the formula this time around is heroes, which are non-playable party members that grant you access to new classes as you complete their side quests. You'll unlock a fair few just by doing the main story, but a lot of them are completely optional. At first I thought this was a really lame addition. It felt like they were just trying to replace Blades from 2, but after some time I completely changed my mind. These heroes are a lot of fun to unlock as the game gets going, and none of their side quests take too long, but they're all pretty interesting to do. Unlocking a new hero means that you can start using their class in your party. My team composition was always changing around as I was maxing out different classes on different characters, so combat never gets stale. As you max out a class, the character also unlocks some permanent skills and arts that can be equipped on any build. There's a lot of fun to be had in optimizing your builds, but there is also an auto-equip option if you're not interested in diving into the deep end. All of the heroes are interestingly designed, have unique dialogue when exploring the world, but only a small handful are relevant to the story. My initial problem with the heroes was that I kept finding myself having to break off from the real main plot to do a mandatory hero quest. And while it's still technically part of the main story, it always felt like a diversion or an annoying distraction from my real goal, especially because most of these situations occur pretty early on when you just want to be set free to explore. In retrospect, it wasn't a big deal, but it was a small pacing hurdle early on. Speaking of exploration though, the world of Ionios is an absolute treat to explore. The continent is a massive ring-shaped chunk of land, so while you don't have the novelty of exploring living creatures like the Titans in 1 or 2, the landscapes are just as breathtaking. The map has a ton of verticality, offering stunning vistas and incredible landmarks to behold. For fans of prior games, the map also consists of remnants of the previous 2 worlds. From the outset of the game, you are tasked with traveling to Sword March, a place at the base of the Mechonis Sword and the Urian Titan, and this sets the precedent for the kinds of things you'll see on the journey. I'm keeping footage to early sections of the game because I don't want to spoil anything, but trust me, there are some really incredible things to see. The environments are also far more interesting and complex than previous games. Field skills are thankfully no longer a thing, but there are a handful of traversal skills to unlock through various hero quests. These skills help you reach new areas, find new treasures, bosses, and other secrets, but not all of them are mandatory, which I found pretty fun and interesting. After beating the game, I noticed that I hadn't unlocked all of the traversal skills, and I was a little bit confused. I didn't remember seeing any areas that I couldn't get into, but then I found a skill that would let me walk up moving sand and explored an entire chunk of the map that I'd previously ignored. As a last note on gameplay, I want to mention that the side quests seem far more substantial this time around. Especially in the original Xenoblade 1, there was a haunting amount of side quests, and precious few of them were interesting in, literally any way. Xenoblade X was similar if I recall, and 2 was a little bit of a step up, but still overstuffed with meaningless quests. I haven't done that many of the side quests in 3, but they have felt a little more interesting and worthwhile across the board, and it doesn't seem like there are as many as in 1, which is a good thing. Moving on to the presentation, Xenoblade 3 is equal parts breathtaking and frustrating. Artistically, the game wows as always, but the game still feels shackled by the constraints of the Switch. Looking back on 2, 3 definitely feels like a true graphical evolution. The image quality is much sharper, artifacting is considerably reduced, and performance remains largely stable, with the only major instances of slowdown being in combat with a lot of enemies. I think the actual resolution is similar to what it was in 2, but the reconstruction technique used here turns in a much cleaner picture, meaning that the game actually feels playable in handheld mode now. Xenoblade 2 is unbelievably blurry when playing in handheld mode, and while Definitive Edition was much improved, it was still unideal. 3 finally provides a handheld experience that doesn't feel super compromised. Cutscenes do still have some noticeable artifacting, where docked doesn't, but actually playing the game is pretty solid. Across both modes, the depth of field effect used in the cinematics is distractingly low resolution. I got used to it, and it never bothered me all that much, but that's going to come down to personal taste. Despite these limitations of rapidly aging hardware, Xenoblade 3 remains stunning. Monolith is firing on all cylinders when it comes to the art here. Cutscenes are often gorgeously lit, superbly animated, and well staged. The higher quality character models have so much life and depth to them, especially in the eyes. Hair physics are also surprisingly complex, with a lot more realistic motion and individual sections of the hair. The game also has this little system where your characters build up dirt on their clothes as you explore the world, and the effect looks surprisingly good, and it's a really neat little feature to see in a game like this. You can clean the clothes when you make camp, and as far as I can tell, it has no impact on gameplay. It's just a fun little graphical quirk.
There we go. Nice and clean.
And you don't see that in a lot of games like this, especially on Switch. Exploration animations have also been substantially upgraded over previous entries. Characters now finally move at the actual speed of their run cycle, and jumping carries a weight that previous games always lacked. The animations are a lot more lifelike and believable now. Combat animations are slick and punchy, giving everything a nice weighty feeling, and leaving the characteristic floatiness in the past. Though this wasn't really a problem in 2 either. Monolith has always excelled at environment design, and this game is no exception, with every single area of the game offering breathtaking views, no matter how big or small the space is. On the audio side of things, the game wins yet again. As always, the soundtrack is just magical, with some of the very best area themes and combat tracks in the entire series, and the usage of the 2 different flute melodies throughout various tracks in the story is absolutely brilliant. The voice acting is also really incredible as well. The main 6 characters have been wonderfully cast and acted in the English recording, and almost all of the other characters, no matter how small, are convincingly realized.
Leave him alone! Let him go!
The Mobius, however, suffer from some of the corniest writing and acting in the game, and I'm not really sure why.
Now get on your high horse! You're nothing more than a grunt!
Noah!
My dear boy, your perfect intuition is shit!
There are a few that I don't particularly love as a matter of my personal taste, and some that lean a little too heavily into JRPG tropism and overacting, but overall, I'd say that this is the most consistently quality voice cast the series has had so far. Across all areas, I'd say the presentation excels, despite the graphical limitations. Finally, I want to touch on the story. For a massive JRPG like this, the story is probably what most people come for. Again, no spoilers for now. The initial premise is immediately engaging. 2 countries endlessly at war with each other, killing each other merely to stay alive to keep on fighting. Fighting to live, and living to fight. Soldiers are born at age 10 and live 10 years before returning to their queen in the homecoming ceremony if they aren't killed in combat. This is the setting you are thrown into, before strange events permanently alter the fates of the 6 main characters, 3 from each nation, and you are tasked with traveling the continent in order to uncover your real enemy, all under the time limit of 3 months, at the end of which party member Mio will die. While this initial premise is great, the actual pacing of the story can be a little bit wonky, with a lot of it feeling a little bit like filler. Not in the sense that the content is cheap or uninteresting, but just that several sections of the game do not feel even remotely connected to your current goal, aside from, oh, we need to get through here and we have to help someone to get past. That said, I was thoroughly engaged from beginning to end. The main party is brought to life so well, each with distinct goals and struggles, perspectives on life, etc. And they all interact with each other in such an endearing way. Without a doubt, this is my favorite overall party in any Xenoblade game because I love each and every character. I don't think Noah usurps Shulk as my favorite protagonist, but he is really great. Unfortunately, I think merging the 2 previous worlds holds this game back a little bit. It's hard to say much without getting into spoilers, but I'll just say, generally, the narrative is at its best when it's about 6 kids navigating what it means to live in a world that is designed to die, and at its worst when it tries to bridge the connection between Xenoblade 1 and 2. The plot can also be fairly predictable, and none of the big twists are all that twisty. I'm a little mixed on the story overall, but the chemistry of the main cast picks up the slack. And of course, my frame of reference here is the previous Xenoblade games, which are some of the best JRPG stories ever, so the bar has been set pretty high. While the story doesn't triumph in the way I was hoping, it's still well worth experiencing, especially for series fans. because the highs are incredibly high and the lows are pretty average. To be honest, I've kind of only scratched the surface of what the game has to offer, but I wanted to put out a shorter review, get my thoughts out there, and hopefully in the near future I'll be posting a longer, full-on spoiler discussion with a special guest. For now though, I think Xenoblade 3 is a superb game for the Nintendo Switch. Complex and rewarding combat, exciting worlds to explore, and an engaging and endearing but flawed narrative all collide together to create a full package of a game that truly does feel like a worthy culmination of an epic saga. With the entire trilogy on Switch, there has never been a better time to give these games a try. It's not a game for everyone, but if you are on the fence, give it a try. I don't think you'll regret it. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to give a quick thanks to all the new subs to the channel. We are steadily growing, and I've got a lot of content in the works, including the second video on my series about game length, so I hope you look forward to that. And if you want to support what I do, just hit that like button if you liked it, and don't if you didn't. That's all you gotta do. And hey, if you liked what you see here, subscribe. There's more coming soon. Cheers.